You guys know how much I love a good reading challenge, so I decided to attempt to read fantasy books for an entire week. I'm not a huge fantasy reader. It's very hard for me to actually find a fantasy book that I absolutely love. Aside from the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, like I absolutely loved that fantasy series, but I haven't been able to find a fantasy book or a series that honestly lives up to ACOTAR, which is kind of sad. And I want to get into more fantasy books, so this is me attempting to do that this week. It is like the perfect Monday right now, at least for me. I woke up and it's actually a little chilly outside. It's very cloudy. It looks like it's about to rain any minute now, so I'm super happy. It very rarely rains in Tampa unless it's hurricane season, of course. So when it does rain, I get really excited. I just love rainy weather, and it's like the perfect reading weather. I sometimes struggle to read in the summer because it's so nice out and all I want to do is be outside, but when it's like gloomy and rainy, it's like the perfect excuse to stay home and just curl up with a good book. So that is what we're going to do today. I am going to start off this fantasy reading week with Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. This is a fantasy. I'm not sure if it's YA. I think it might be YA. I've legit had this book for months and I've started it and DNF'd it so many times, you guys. I don't know why it's been a struggle for me to get into this book, but we're going to give it a chance this week. And I'm going to start from the very beginning because I honestly don't even remember what I read the last time I DNF'd it, and I never really got that far. I think the farthest I got into this book was probably like 25-30 pages. Yeah, I couldn't do it. If you're unfamiliar with Six of Crows, it is obviously a fantasy book, and it goes, Rotterdam, a bustling hub of international trade where anything can be had for the right price, and no one knows that better than criminal prodigy Cass Brecker. Cass is offered a chance at a deadly heist that could make him rich beyond his wildest dreams, but he can't pull it off alone. A convict with a thirst for revenge, a sharpshooter who can't walk away from a wager, a runaway with a privileged past, a spy known as the Wrath, a heartrender using her magic to survive the slums, a thief with a gift for unlikely escapes. His crew are the only ones who might stand between the world and destruction if they don't kill each other first. This book is highly rated on Goodreads. I don't know why I've struggled to get into it. It's just been hard for me to actually start and finish the book, but today or this week I am determined to finish it. So many of you guys have recommended this book to me, so maybe it's just because I haven't been in the right mood for a fantasy read, and today I feel like I'm definitely in the right mood to read fantasy, especially with how gloomy it is outside. We're going to give this a chance and I'll share my thoughts as I read. I just got to chapter 4 and I'm not gonna lie, I'm struggling to keep up with all the characters. I feel like there's way too many characters and their names are weird or hard to pronounce, so I'm just like confused as to who's who and why the heck there's so many characters. But from what I've gathered so far, Kaz is like the mastermind of his little gang or his crew. He's not the big boss, but he might as well be the boss. But everyone kind of just considers him to be the boss because he's the one that plans everything and is truly the mastermind, to the point where his government actually reaches out to him directly with a offer of a lifetime, and he doesn't want to walk away from this offer because he stands to make literally a shit ton of money. It's up to him whether or not he can actually accomplish this like mission with his crew, because it's something that hasn't been done before. It really reminds me of the Mission Impossible movies when the government gives like Ethan Hunt a mission, but if he gets caught they kind of disavow him and they pretend that they have no idea who he is, because that's basically what the government told Kaz. Like, if you get caught, you're on your own. We don't want to be affiliated with what we're asking you to do. So it's like off the record. But the book is starting off quite slow. I need something to happen. I'm kind of falling asleep here. I need the book to pick up very soon. Hopefully it does. Just got to part 2 and it's taken me forever to get to this point. Honestly, not much has happened in the book yet aside from Cass being offered this deal of a lifetime and him just like gathering his crew together. I have noticed that his crew doesn't really trust him. They kind of side-eye him a lot, and I think it has to do with the fact that he's known to be kind of ruthless and money is really his greatest motivation. They kind of sleep with one eye open when it comes to Kaz, and Cass doesn't trust anyone either. So even though they're like in a gang together and in this crew together, no one really trusts one another. Like everyone has their own like motive for being in the crew. But yeah, I just got to part 2, which is called Servant and Lover. I guess the book is divided into 6 parts. I need something to happen very soon. If I wasn't filming this reading vlog, I probably would DNF this book. I'm not really enjoying it, but I do want to get through it because so many of you guys have said it's really good and have recommended it to me. So maybe it's just one of those slow burners and eventually it get better. I'm hoping. I don't know. Let's keep on reading to find out. I'm about to start reading part 3. Part 2 was definitely a lot more fast paced than part 1, which was really nice because I don't think I could have dealt with another 100 pages of slow build-up. Things are being set in motion for the crew's heist, which is actually kind of cool to read about. It was also a little intense because Cass and his crew were actually ambushed by a rival gang right when they were about to head out for their heist. Things got real for them very quickly. I'm actually looking forward to starting part 3 because I know the book is going to definitely continue is fast paced from here on out. Got to part 4, which means I'm officially halfway done with the book and I'm actually really enjoying it. Like I'm not dreading reading this book as I was during the first part of it. Part 3 was even more fast-paced than part 2 and we really got to know every character in part 3. Part 3 was mainly Cass and his crew traveling to the destination of the heist, but we also, I don't know why I keep saying we, I guess since I'm the one reading this book, I was able to get a glimpse into each character's past and learn what each character went through and how they ended up where they are in this crew in the middle of performing a heist that could quite possibly cost them their life or their freedom. So that was really nice because it made me appreciate the characters more and kind of want to root for them a little bit more. When I was confused as to who was who and what their contribution to like the story was going to be, I didn't really care for them. Now that I know more about their past, I'm able to connect with them a little bit more, which is really nice. But I'm actually going to stop reading for today, continue reading the book tomorrow. Like I said, I just got to part 4 and there are 6 parts in total in the book. I'm halfway done and where I wasn't really enjoying it at the beginning, I'm definitely enjoying it now. This is why I don't like DNFing books because sometimes you can start off hating a book and then you end up actually enjoying it as the story continues. A little lesson for us all, remember. But yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Why does fruit hit different when you're pregnant? All I've wanted this whole pregnancy is fresh fruit. That's literally it, and it literally hits so different. It's so good. I have never ate so much fruit in my entire life like I have during this pregnancy, and I'm not mad at it, honestly. So good. But anyways, back to the book. Things just got real for the crew. Basically everything that could go wrong went wrong, and now they have to figure out a way to complete the heist but also to not end up locked up or dead. Things have definitely gotten intense. Low-key loving the tension between Inaj, is that how you pronounce her name, and Cass. The tension between them is everything. It's clear that they are both attracted to one another, but neither of them want to make the first move or even admit their true feelings for one another, but it's pretty obvious that they care for each other more than friends, and it's really cute. Love the tension, love the angst between them, and I low-key hope that they end up together by the end of this book. If they don't end up together, I'm going to be so upset. They really do balance each other out perfectly, and Cass just has my heart already, so I really want him to find happiness. I'm kind of embarrassed by how long it took me to actually get into this book because by the end of it, I was completely hooked. I for sure thought I was going to hate it. I actually thought that by the time I finished this book, I was going to sit down and tell you guys how much I hated it, but I actually really enjoyed it. And it's so funny to me how I've picked up this book so many times and DNF'd it so many times only to finally sit down and focus on finishing it and then realizing that it's actually a really good book. Less let's start at the beginning. Like I mentioned multiple times throughout this reading vlog, this book is very slow at the beginning. It's a very hard to get into, at least it was for me. All the different character names were different fantasy names for absolutely every little thing, which was really hard for me to understand. But maybe that's because I'm not a huge fantasy reader. I don't really read too many fantasy books, so maybe I'm just not used to the fantasy terminology, if you will. Names and things like that were very hard for me to follow at the beginning, which made the book seem very dull to me. And again, it did take me a while to actually get into the book and to actually connect with all the characters. But once I did, let me tell you that I ended up loving absolutely everyone in this book. I loved how all the characters were very different, yet they banded together to form this crew and were really willing to risk their life. Granted, they were willing to risk their life for money, but at the end of the day, they had each other's back. Cass absolutely has my heart. I love him so much. But honestly, all the characters were so lovable. They all had like complex dynamics to them. They had multiple layers. Right when you thought that you had them figured out, something would happen and you would discover a new layer to them. The characters were really well written and their banter with one another was really fun to read about. I also like that you got to see into their past and to really understand why they ended up being the people that they currently were and how they ended up being part of the crew. It made you as the reader connect with them a little bit more. You kind of feel bad for literally all the characters because they all had a really crappy upbringing or something bad happened to them that made them feel like their only option was to be part of this crew. And the ending took me by complete surprise. I did not see the ending coming, which in hindsight I probably should have seen the ending coming, but there was so much going on in this book, especially towards like the middle and later half of it. I just didn't have the time to come up with my own theory, so by the time I got to the ending I was like, did that really just happen? And it did. The book ended on a huge cliffhanger and I honestly cannot wait to pick up the second book. I'm honestly going to order the second book in the series right away, probably right after I'm done filming, because I really want to find out what happens to the crew in the second book, how they get out of the mess that they're currently in, and I'm just really excited to continue the character's story and just to see where everyone ends up. I honestly give this book like a 3.75 star rating. Definitely recommend. I was so close to giving it a 4-star rating, but since it took me forever to get into it and since it was so slow at the beginning, it just didn't seem fair to me to give it 4 stars. So I'm going to give it a 3.75, but I definitely recommend for you guys to pick up this book if you've been thinking of reading it. I'm so happy I finally read it. The next book I'm going to be reading for this reading vlog is one that I don't really consider it fantasy, although I guess it is technically fantasy. I view it more as a dystopian science fiction book, but I did look it up on Google and it is labeled as a fantasy along with being science fiction, so I think it works perfectly for this vlog. And that book is Restore Me. So this is the 5th book I think in the Shatter Me series. I chose this one as my next book because I wanted a book that I knew all the characters already, that I kind of had an idea of what was happening, that I didn't really have to waste time with reading about a new world and character building and all of that stuff. Like I didn't want to start another fantasy series right after finishing Six of Crows. Even though I ended up loving it, I still struggled to get into it. So I didn't want to put myself into a reading slump and I wanted to pick up a book where I already knew the characters and loved the characters. So that's why I am choosing Restore Me as the next book in this vlog. Okay, this might be the 4th book in the series, not the 5th book. I'm so sorry. I read Ignite Me a few weeks ago, I think last month actually, more than a few weeks ago, and I gave it 5 stars. Absolutely loved it. It is definitely my favorite book in the series so far. So I really have high hopes for this one. I hope it's just as good as the last one. From what I gather from the synopsis so far, this book picks up right where the last one left off. Spoiler alert, just skip this part if you haven't read the Shatter Me series, but in the last book, Juliet became the leader of the reestablishment. That's basically where it ended. So this one is going to show her journey as the new leader of the reestablishment, the New World Order, which I'm interested to see how she stepped into her new role, especially since she's still very young. I think she's only 17 or 18. Curious to see how she handles everything. And I'm so excited to read about Warner again because he stole my heart in the last book. I absolutely love him now, even though I hated him in the first book. He has my complete heart now. And I'm excited to read about Kenji again because I absolutely love him. I freaking love Kenji. I need him to have his own book. Aside from Warner, he's probably my favorite character, and he's not even a main character, he's just a side character, but I love his personality so freaking much. I love that we're getting Juliet and Warner's point of view. That's a change of pace because none of the other books in the series have been dual POV. They've basically been written all from Juliet's point of view, so I'm really excited that in this one, from what I've seen so far, is going to be both Juliet and Warner's point of view. So excited about that. I kind of hate how Juliet is reverting back to her old self in this book. Like in the last book, she was definitely a lot more confident. For some reason, she thinks that she's the only one with problems and the only one with a shit ton of responsibilities on her shoulders. It just irks me so much. Thank God for Kenji. He's the only one that tells her to cut her shit out. Everyone else just kind of like tells her how great she is and how powerful she is. Kenji is the only one that will be like, listen, you're acting like a child. Did you really expect your new role to be easy? Like, it wasn't going to be easy, and you're not the only person with a dark childhood, a dark past. And I'm so grateful for him, because otherwise this girl will spiral out of control with thinking that she's the only one with problems. Quick little update, I'm about halfway done with the book. Even though I'm enjoying it, Juliet's and Warner's characters are really irking me in this book. I know that they went through a lot in the last book, but they're refusing to communicate with one another regarding their true feelings and what they're actually going through. They're both acting very immature, but then I keep reminding myself that Juliet's only 17 years old, and I think Warner's only 19, so they don't really know any better. They're still teenagers with all of these responsibilities. But I just wish they would just talk to each other, because there's a lot of miscommunication going on right now. Even Warner is like keeping a lot of information from Juliet. It's kind of making her look dumb in front of her peers because she's not prepared. But it's not entirely her fault, because Warner is the one like was trained to take over Sector 45, and he has all of this information that he just doesn't share with Juliet and that she's just not aware of. Like I said, it's not entirely her fault that she feels inadequate in her new role when no one's really helping her. So I kind of feel like they're walking on eggshells right now. And there's a lot of new truths being revealed about Juliet's past. New things are coming to light, which Warner knows about, and he refuses, or I guess he's scared to tell Juliet. I kind of understand why he's scared, because he doesn't want to hurt her, but at the same time, she deserves to know the truth. But hopefully they get their shit together, and hopefully they both experience a bit of character growth before this book is over, because right now I'm just not a fan of either of them, if I'm being honest. Just tried out the raspberry rose flavor from the brand Poppy. This is like prebiotic soda. Everyone raves about it online. My Target actually started selling them, so I decided to try the raspberry rose flavor, and it's not bad, but it's definitely an acquired taste. I guess it's better than drinking Pepsi or Coke, but definitely a flavor I have to get used to. Let me know if you ever tried out these little Poppy drinks. They're supposed to be really good for you. I have no idea if they're actually healthy, but I wanted to give them a try. But back to the book. Warner finally told Juliet the truth about her past and where she came from, and to say that she didn't take it well will be a huge understatement, which makes sense. Everything she knew about her past turned out to be a complete lie. Before, she had trust issues, but now she really has no idea who to trust. She can't even trust her own memories. I honestly did not see this plot twist coming. Like, this changes so many things. Things are just going to get a lot more complicated for both Juliet and Warner, honestly for everyone in their lives. This new revelation changes everything. The ending, you guys, like what the hell happened at the end of this book? That ending, what? Let's unpack this book. This book definitely was a little bit more slow paced than the last book. I think it's meant to set up the next 2 or 3 books in the series, so it kind of makes sense that it's a little bit more slower paced. The whole book was basically Juliet and Warner adjusting to their new roles while still trying to navigate their relationship, basically trying to figure out their lives. The writing was still highly addicting. It was still a pretty quick read for me because the writing is so simple. You kind of just fly through the book. I needed that, especially after reading Six of Crows. I feel like Six of Crows took me forever to read, and this one was just such a super quick, easy read for me. But in this book, you're reminded of how young Juliet and Warner actually are. Like, I think Warner's 19 and Juliet 17. And in this book, that becomes very clear. They're just two teenagers with literally the world on their shoulders. So it makes sense that they're having a difficult time adjusting to the new roles. I'm interested to see how everything plays out in the next book, especially after that ending. The book ended on a huge cliffhanger, and I don't even know how the characters move past this massive bombshell and move past what happened at the very end. Like, I can't believe what happened. I'm trying to be as vague as possible so I don't ruin the book in case you haven't read it. But when I got to the last couple pages and the thing happens, I was just like, there's no way. How do they move past that? But overall, I think I give this book like a solid 4-star rating. Again, it's not as good as the last one. The last book I gave a 5-star rating to, but this one was still pretty darn good. I'm definitely going to order the next book in the series, and I'm going to read it ASAP because I need to know what happens next and how the characters move past the massive bombshell that was dropped at the very end of this book. It's crazy. I didn't think I was going to enjoy this series as much as I am. I'm going to be really sad when I read the final book. Next book that I'm going to read is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. Recently, I've been seeing this book everywhere. So many people have been raving about it, so I'm actually really excited to start it. It's also not a super thick fantasy book, which I'm grateful for. This one's more of a fairy tale, I guess, but it follows Evangeline Fox, who I guess believes in true love, and desperate to stop the love of her life from marrying someone else, she strikes a deal with the Prince of Hearts. But she soon discovers that bargaining with the Prince of Hearts is a dangerous game. He has plans for her, plans that will either end in the greatest happily ever after or the most exquisite tragedy. Reminded me a lot of Cinderella. I'm getting very much fairy tale vibes, but I think it's because it's written as a fairy tale, so that's why I'm getting Cinderella vibes. I'm really enjoying it so far. I'm halfway through the book. I actually just got to part 3 of the book, and part 2 was mainly the main character trying to figure out what the Prince of Hearts was up to and figuring out his true intentions with her behind their deal. I'm really enjoying the book. Like I said, it's definitely giving me fairy tale vibes, but in a good way. Like, the main character has an evil stepmother. She has a stepsister who appears to be kind and appears to want the best for the main character, but honestly, she's giving me very shady vibes. I'm getting the vibe that she's pretending to be the main character's friend when in reality she's not. Definitely don't like her. Maybe that's why I'm getting Cinderella vibes, because the main character has an evil stepmother and then a shady stepsister as well. Also, both her parents are dead, so she literally has no family. I actually think I'm going to be able to finish this book today because I'm flying through it. It's been such an easy read and I'm actually enjoying it. That is my goal for today, to finish this book. Loved the vibe of this book. It literally was a fairy tale. It felt so magical. I just loved the scenery, the characters, even the villains. It's such a cute book. Because of the fairy tale vibe, I really didn't want to put this book down and I just wanted to continue reading it. It was such a comforting read. I don't know if that's weird based on everything that went down, but yeah, it just felt very comforting and very like enchanting, I guess. I don't know how to describe it. Just very magical. I did struggle connecting with the characters. Like, don't get me wrong, I really like the characters and I enjoyed all of them, especially the Prince of Hearts. I love Jack so much, but I didn't know that this book is actually a spin-off series to the Caraval series. Is that how you pronounce it? I haven't read that series, and I guess the Prince of Hearts makes an appearance in those books. Maybe I would have enjoyed this book a tad bit more had I read that series first. Overall, I really enjoyed this book. I think I give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I'm definitely going to check out the other books in the series because, like I said, I really enjoyed Stephanie Garber's writing in this book. Like, the writing was just magical and I loved everything about it. I loved everything about this world. I'm curious to find out what happens next because this book ended on a little cliffhanger. I might also check out the Caraval series because I've heard really good things about that series as well. And if it's anything like the writing in this book, I feel like I'm probably going to love it. Definitely recommend this book, especially if you're into the fairy tale vibe. It's really cute. Overall, I feel like this was a pretty successful reading week. I pretty much liked all the books that I read. I feel like all the books that I read this week ended on a cliffhanger, and I'm excited to pick up their sequels. Let me know in the comments below if you've read any of the books that I read this week. Let me know your thoughts and your opinions. Do you agree with me or do you disagree? I would love to know. But yeah, that's pretty much it for today's video. I really hope you guys enjoyed watching me read fantasy books for a week. If you did, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. I would love to have you a part of my channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.